Why does self-discipline feel so hard? Why does it often seem like a constant battle between what we want to do and what we know we should do? Most of us have been taught that discipline is about white-knuckling our way through resistance, relying on sheer willpower to force ourselves into better habits. But what if the struggle isn't necessary? What if there's a way to build discipline so seamlessly that it feels like second nature? That's exactly what the ancient Stoics discovered, a path to self-mastery that doesn't require pain or punishment, just small, intentional acts that quietly reshape who we are. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, put it perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This video isn't about another exhausting regimen or rigid set of rules. It's about freedom, the kind that comes when discipline stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like alignment with your best self. The Stoics believed that true self-control isn't about forcing yourself to resist temptation. It's about rewiring your identity so that the right choices become the easiest ones. And the best part, you don't need monumental effort to make it happen. Tiny, consistent actions rooted in Stoic wisdom can quietly transform your habits, your mindset, and even how you see yourself over time. Here, we'll explore 30 simple yet profound practices drawn from Stoicism, each designed to build discipline effortlessly. These aren't quick fixes or superficial hacks. They're time-tested principles that help you cultivate resilience, focus, and inner strength without the burnout. Whether it's starting your day with purpose, reframing challenges as opportunities, or learning to act rather than react, these rituals will help you step into a version of yourself that operates with clarity and calm. By the end, you'll see discipline not as a struggle, but as a natural expression of who you're becoming. Ready to begin? Let's dive in. The way you start your morning sets the tone for your entire day, and the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Ancient wisdom teaches that the first hour after waking is sacred, a quiet opportunity to ground yourself before the chaos of the world rushes in. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, emphasized that we don't control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret it. He called this the discipline of ascent, the practice of pausing before reacting, of choosing how to engage with your thoughts before they spiral. That's why a mindful morning ritual isn't just about productivity. It's about training yourself to meet the day with clarity rather than reactivity. Seneca, the great Stoic thinker, put it bluntly, you are living as if destined to live forever. You lose the day in waiting for the night, and the night in fearing the dawn. How many of us waste those precious early hours scrolling through notifications, letting other people's agendas dictate our focus before we've even had a chance to think for ourselves? Imagine instead starting with just 5 minutes of stillness, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply sitting with a cup of tea while considering what you want to prioritize. The key isn't complexity, it's intention. Here's the challenge for the next week. Resist the urge to grab your phone the moment you open your eyes. Instead, take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself one Stoic question. What's one thing within my control today? Write it down if you can. This tiny shift creates a buffer between you and the world's demands, giving you back the reins of your attention. Think of it like laying the first stone of a bridge. Each morning, you're building a pathway between the person you are and the person you're becoming. The repetition isn't tedious, it's transformative. Over time, these quiet moments compound into something far greater, a mind that's less swayed by distractions and more anchored in purpose. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, ask yourself, How do I want to wake up tomorrow, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, ready to meet whatever comes with steadiness? Your morning ritual isn't about adding another task to your day. It's about reclaiming who you are before the world tells you who to be. One of the most powerful tools in Stoic discipline costs nothing and takes almost no time, yet most people never use it. It's the pause, that tiny space between what happens to you and how you respond. Marcus Aurelius, who faced constant political betrayals and military crises, wrote in his private journal, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But here's what he did next, something most of us forget. He didn't react, he paused. He reminded himself that their behavior came from ignorance of what's good, and that his own peace wasn't negotiable. That split-second decision to step back, that's where real emotional resilience is built. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic or sent a frustrating message. Your body probably reacted before your mind did, heart racing, shoulders tightening, fingers itching to fire off a response. Now imagine inserting just 5 seconds of stillness between that trigger and your reaction. 5 seconds to ask one Stoic question. Will this matter in a week? That pause is like a mental air bag. It doesn't stop the impact, but it keeps the damage from being worse. Here's how to make it practical. Next time you open an email that makes your pulse spike, close your laptop, stand up, take 3 slow breaths while counting the exhales. The ancient Stoics called this prosauch, the practice of attention to your inner state. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about creating just enough space to choose your next move instead of being hijacked by adrenaline. Try this today with something minor, a rude comment, a spilled coffee, and notice how differently the situation unfolds when you're not on autopilot. The magic isn't in avoiding life's irritations, it's in rewiring your relationship to them. Every time you pause instead of react, you're doing something extraordinary. You're strengthening the neural pathways of self-control while weakening the ones tied to impulsive anger. Like a sculptor patiently chipping away at marble, each pause reveals a clearer version of who you're capable of being. So tonight, pick one predictable trigger, maybe rush hour traffic or a critical coworker, and decide now how you'll use the pause tomorrow. Not to change them, but to change your experience of them. Because discipline isn't about controlling the world, it's about mastering what happens in the space between your ears. There's a paradox at the heart of true resilience. The more we chase comfort, the weaker our ability to handle discomfort becomes. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who lived in luxury as an advisor to Emperor Nero, understood this better than anyone. He deliberately practiced what he called voluntary hardship, sleeping on the floor some nights, wearing thin clothes in winter, or skipping meals not out of necessity but choice. Why? Because he knew comfort was a silent trap. In one of his letters he wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse clothing, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Think about how opposite this is from modern life. We have apps to deliver warm meals to our doorsteps in minutes, heated seats in our cars, and endless distractions to avoid even a moment of boredom. Yet despite all this insulation from discomfort, anxiety and burnout are higher than ever. The Stoics recognized something profound. Discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the training ground. When the Roman general Scipio Africanus, whose tactics defeated Hannibal, trained his army, he forced them to march without shoes in summer and swim icy rivers in winter. Not to punish them, but to prepare them. He knew that familiarity with hardship made actual battles feel manageable. Here's the challenge hiding in plain sight. Small, voluntary discomforts rewire your relationship to adversity. A cold shower isn't just about enduring the shock. It's about proving to yourself that you can handle more than you think. Skipping dessert one night isn't deprivation. It's a reminder that pleasure is optional, not mandatory. The goal isn't to suffer needlessly, but to break the illusion that comfort equals safety. Try this for 1 week. Pick one tiny voluntary discomfort each day. Leave your jacket unzipped in chilly weather. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sit with an itch without scratching it immediately. These aren't tests of endurance, they're subtle rehearsals for life's bigger challenges. Every time you choose discomfort, you're building a mental muscle memory that whispers, "This is temporary, I've handled worse." The irony, the more you practice discomfort, the more you appreciate ordinary comforts. That warm bed feels softer after a night on a thin mat. A simple meal tastes richer after fasting. What the Stoics were really cultivating wasn't toughness, but gratitude, the kind that comes from knowing you're not at the mercy of your circumstances. So tonight, as you climb into your comfortable bed, ask yourself, what small discomfort can I invite tomorrow? Not to punish myself, but to remind myself that I'm stronger than my cravings for ease. Because resilience isn't about what happens to you, it's about what you prove to yourself in those quiet, chosen moments of resistance. Your phone buzzes, a notification flashes. Then another and another. Before you know it, 20 minutes have vanished into the digital void. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they understood distraction better than anyone. Epictetus, who taught philosophy while chained to a Roman column, put it bluntly, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." That's the essence of digital minimalism through a Stoic lens, not just using less technology, but reclaiming sovereignty over your attention. Because every time you reflexively check your phone, you're handing control of your mind to someone else's agenda. Think about the last time you opened an app just for a second and fell down a rabbit hole of reels, emails, or headlines. That's not willpower failing its design. Tech companies spend millions engineering features to exploit our psychological triggers. But here's what the Stoics would suggest. Instead of fighting distraction with gritted teeth, redesign your environment so focus becomes the default. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal by his bed to reflect each morning. No notifications, no infinite scroll, just blank pages waiting for his thoughts. Start with one simple Stoic audit. For the next 7 days, track every digital interaction like a philosopher observing their own habits. Carry a small notebook or use your phone's screen time report to log 3 things: what you opened, why you opened it, and how you felt afterward. You'll quickly spot patterns. Maybe Instagram checks spike when you're avoiding work, or news binges leave you anxious rather than informed. The goal isn't judgment, it's awareness. As Seneca wrote, "The man who knows why he does something can never be enslaved by it." Now implement 2 tactical changes rooted in Stoic control. First, silence all non-essential notifications. Every ping is a tiny request for your attention. Would you let strangers knock on your door 40 times a day? Second, batch social media into scheduled windows. Treat it like ancient Romans treated the public baths, a place to visit intentionally, not live in. Keep your phone in grayscale mode during work hours. Without colors, dopamine triggers. You'll notice how often you reach for it mindlessly. The deeper shift happens when you realize digital minimalism isn't about missing out. It's about showing up for your real conversations, your creative projects, your quiet walks. Epictetus warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Every time you resist the pull of a notification, you're not just saving minutes, you're reinforcing the neural pathways of intentional living. So tonight, charge your phone outside the bedroom. Tomorrow morning, gift yourself those first golden hours of focus. Because discipline isn't deprivation, It's the quiet joy of owning your attention again. Gratitude might seem like a soft practice in a philosophy known for toughness, but the Stoics wielded it like a scalpel, a precise tool for dissecting challenges and finding the wisdom hidden within them. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome during plague and war, began each day by writing in his journal not about what he lacked, but what he could learn from his difficulties. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's the radical Stoic twist on gratitude. It's not just about appreciating the good, it's about mining the bad for its hidden gifts. Modern gratitude journals often focus on listing sunny moments, a promotion, a kind gesture, a beautiful sunset, but Stoic gratitude digs deeper. Imagine ending your day by reflecting on 3 things that frustrated or challenged you, then asking, what did this teach me? How did this reveal my strengths? Where did this force me to grow? A traffic jam becomes a lesson in patience. A critical coworker highlights your resilience. Even failure transforms into a stepping stone when you interrogate it with curiosity rather than resentment. Here's how to practice it tonight. Grab any notebook, even a scrap of paper, and divide your entry into 2 columns. On the left, write 1 hardship you faced today. On the right, answer, how did this serve me? Maybe your rushed morning revealed how much calmer you feel when you prepare the night before. Perhaps a missed deadline showed you where your systems need tightening. The key is specificity. Instead of writing, I'm grateful for my health, a Stoic might note, this headache reminded me to drink water before coffee, and now I feel more energized. This isn't toxic positivity. The Stoics weren't pretending hardships didn't hurt, they were choosing to extract value from them anyway. Seneca, who endured exile and chronic illness, wrote, "No tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many winds blow against it." Your gratitude journal becomes the record of those winds shaping you. Over time, you'll notice something profound. The same challenges that once derailed you now feel like training. Try this for 7 nights. Keep the entries short, 3 sentences max. The magic isn't in the length, it's in the mental pivot you make by reframing irritations as instructors. And if you ever feel stuck, borrow Marcus Aurelius' morning question. What's here that I can work with? Because discipline isn't just about enduring life's storms, it's about learning to sail in their direction. Multitasking is a myth, a seductive lie that tricks us into believing we're accomplishing more when we're actually fracturing our attention. Seneca saw this 2,000 years ago when he wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Be wary of the man who busies himself with many things, he spreads his soul thin." The Stoics understood what modern science now confirms. When we split our focus, we do nothing well. True presence isn't about checking boxes faster. It's about immersing yourself so completely in one task that everything else fades away. Imagine eating a meal without glancing at your phone, or writing a report without alt-tabbing to refresh your inbox. That's not deprivation, it's liberation from the tyranny of divided attention. Consider how differently we experience life when we're fully engaged. A conversation where you're not mentally drafting your next response becomes richer. A walk without headphones lets you notice the rhythm of your breath and the texture of the world around you. Seneca called this the art of living in each moment as if it were your last, not in a morbid sense, but with the urgency and appreciation that comes from undiluted focus. He practiced this by writing letters in complete isolation, often at night when distractions were minimal. His words weren't composed between interruptions, they were forged in uninterrupted concentration. Here's how to reclaim that depth today. Start with something simple, a 30-minute block where you do one thing, and only one thing, with your full presence. If you're reading, close every other tab. If you're eating, leave your phone in another room. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even wasteful. That's your brain rebelling against years of conditioning. But stay the course. Notice how flavors intensify when you're not scrolling. Observe how ideas flow when your mind isn't juggling 5 thoughts at once. These small victories build what the Stoics called hegemonikon, the ruling faculty of a mind in command of itself. The modern world will always demand more tabs open, more notifications answered, more tasks crammed into shrinking time. But the Stoic antidote isn't working harder, it's working deeper. Tonight, choose one activity you normally pair with distraction: washing dishes, folding laundry, drinking your morning coffee, and perform it with monastic focus. Not as a chore, but as a meditation on what happens when you stop dividing yourself. Because discipline isn't about doing more things, it's about doing each thing as if it were the only thing that mattered. The day's final moments hold a quiet power, not just for rest but for reflection. While most of us collapse into bed exhausted, the Stoics saw nighttime as sacred ground for honest self-examination. Epictetus, the philosopher who turned his enslavement into a school of wisdom, put it plainly: if you wish to improve, be content to appear foolish or clueless in the eyes of those who have no wish to improve. That's the essence of the Stoic evening review. Not self-criticism, but clear-eyed curiosity about where you stumbled and where you grew. Imagine ending your day not with mindless scrolling, but with 3 deliberate questions. First, what did I do well today? Not just achievements, but moments of patience, integrity, or kindness, especially when no one was watching. Maybe you paused before reacting to a provocation, or chose deep work over distraction. Second, where did I fall short? The Stoics weren't interested in guilt, they sought patterns. Perhaps you interrupted someone instead of listening, or procrastinated on a meaningful task. Third and most vital, what did this teach me? Every misstep is data, every success a clue to your evolving nature. Here's how to make it tangible. Keep a notebook by your bed, something simple, unpretentious. In the last 10 minutes before sleep, write just 1 sentence for each question. No essays required. The power lies in consistency, not volume. Over weeks, you'll spot themes. Maybe your best moments happen early when your willpower is fresh, or your struggles cluster around certain triggers. Seneca called this practice the mirror of the soul, not to judge what you see, but to recognize it clearly. Pair this with a physical ritual to anchor the mental shift. Light a candle as you begin your review, signaling to your brain that this isn't just more thinking, it's a transition. Or sip a cup of chamomile tea while writing, linking the warmth in your hands to the warmth of self-discovery. The body remembers what the mind forgets. These small sensory cues deepen the habit. Tonight, as you lie in the dark before sleep, resist the urge to mentally replay tomorrow's to-do list. Instead, ask yourself, if today happened again, what one small adjustment would make it better? Not a sweeping change, just a single, deliberate tweak. That's the Stoic way, improvement measured not in grand declarations, but in daily millimeters of progress. The evening review isn't about fixing yourself, it's about meeting yourself exactly where you are with the clarity to grow. Words are like arrows once loosed, they cannot be called back. The Stoics treated speech with the same precision as a master archer choosing when to draw their bow. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, famously said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more and speak less." This wasn't just about quantity, it was about quality. Every sentence, they believed, should serve one of 3 purposes: to benefit, to clarify, or to uplift. Anything else was noise, energy wasted on gossip, complaints, or hollow chatter that eroded both integrity and inner peace. Think about the last conversation where you regretted speaking. Maybe you exaggerated a story to seem more interesting, or vented about a colleague only to feel emptier afterward. The Stoics would call these unnecessary utterances, words that create friction without purpose. Contrast that with moments of deliberate silence, when someone criticizes you unfairly and you choose not to retaliate. When office gossip swirls and you neither add fuel nor pretend to listen, that restraint isn't weakness, it's strength in its purest form. As Epictetus observed, silence is safer than speech. Here's where modern life tests us. Social media rewards hot takes. Work culture confuses busyness with importance. Even casual gatherings pressure us to fill every pause with chatter. But speech discipline begins with recognizing one truth. You cannot control how others perceive your words, only whether they were worth speaking at all. Marcus Aurelius kept this reminder in his journal. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Try this experiment today. Carry a small notebook and tally every time you speak without clear intent, interrupting to assert dominance, complaining about trivial inconveniences, or laughing at a joke that crossed a line. Don't judge yourself, just observe. You'll likely notice patterns. Perhaps stress makes you verbose, or certain people trigger careless comments. Awareness alone shifts behavior. The Stoics called this prosouch vigilance over one's impulses. Now elevate the challenge. For one meal with friends or family, practice what Seneca called the golden mean of conversation. Speak only when your words meet 3 criteria. They're true, they're kind, and they serve the discussion. You'll be astonished how much more weight your words carry when they aren't buried under 20 others. True speech discipline isn't about becoming mute, it's about reclaiming the power of your voice. When a Stoic philosopher spoke, people leaned in because they knew every syllable had been weighed. That's the gift you give yourself and others when you trade quantity for quality. Your words become like rare coins, few in number, but each one valuable. Imagine standing in front of 2 piles. One holds everything truly yours, your thoughts, your choices, your character. The other contains everything else, possessions, opinions, circumstances. The Stoics called this division the dichotomy of control, and mastering it is the key to unshakable peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "You always own the option of having no opinion." There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. That's the heart of Stoic indifference, not apathy, but the profound freedom that comes when you stop tying your worth to what's outside your command. Start by taking inventory of your real assets, not your bank balance or job title, but the inner resources no one can take from you, your ability to adapt when plans crumble. The discipline to walk away from pointless arguments, the patience to listen deeply instead of waiting to speak. These are your Stoic strengths, the invisible armor that protects you far better than any material possession. Epictetus, born a slave, built an entire philosophy around this truth. Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him. Here's how to build your own Stoic asset list tonight. Grab paper and divide it into 3 columns. In the first, write internal assets, qualities like resilience, creativity, or humor that define how you meet challenges. The second column is developed skills, languages learned, crafts mastered, even the hard-won wisdom from past failures. The third, gifts beyond control, your health on good days, the love of family, even the simple privilege of clean water. This isn't just positivity, it's strategic awareness. By cataloging what's truly yours, you spot where you've been investing energy in the wrong pile. Marcus Aurelius modeled this daily. Despite ruling an empire, his journal focused on refining his judgment, his generosity, his equanimity, not his palaces or victories. When barbarians threatened Rome's borders, he wrote not about their armies, but about guarding his own mind. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Your asset list works the same way. Seeing your non-material strengths in ink changes how you weather storms. Losing a job feels less catastrophic when you remember your problem-solving skills remain intact. A harsh critique stings less when you know your self-worth isn't contingent on applause. Try this exercise for 7 nights. Each evening, add 1 item to each column, not grandiose traits, but specific, observable strengths. Maybe today you noticed your knack for diffusing tension between co-workers. Perhaps you resisted the urge to check emails during your child's recital. These are the quiet victories that compound into unbreakable confidence. Over time, your list becomes a mirror reflecting who you are at your core, not what you own, but what you are. And when life inevitably shakes the external pile, you'll stand firm, anchored in assets no market crash or betrayal can erase. The paradox: the less you cling to externals, the more you appreciate them. That morning coffee tastes richer when you know it's a bonus, not a necessity. Relationships deepen when you love people without demanding they fill your voids. This is Stoic indifference at its best, not detachment from life, but engagement with it on terms that leave you whole regardless of outcomes. So tonight, as you write your first asset, ask yourself, what do I already have that no one can take? The answer might just redefine where you've been looking for security all along. There's a counterintuitive practice the Stoics used to build unshakable calm, one that involves deliberately imagining the very things we fear. Seneca called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Far from pessimistic, this exercise was designed to strip adversity of its power to shock us. In one of his letters, he wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. Rehearsal in advance softens the blow." Think of it like emotional vaccination. A small, controlled dose of hardship that inoculates you against panic when real challenges arise. Consider how differently we approach things we've mentally rehearsed versus those that catch us off guard. A pilot doesn't wait for an engine failure to decide how to respond. They drill emergency procedures until calm under pressure becomes second nature. The Stoics applied this same principle to daily life. Before embarking on a journey, Seneca would visualize storms delaying his ship or thieves stealing his luggage. Not to dwell on misery, but to prepare his mind to respond with clarity rather than panic. Here's how to bring this into your world. Pick an upcoming event that's stirring anxiety, a job interview, a difficult conversation, even a fitness goal you're afraid you'll miss. Now close your eyes and vividly imagine the worst plausible outcome. Not catastrophes, but realistic setbacks. The interviewer seems disinterested. Your friend reacts defensively. You fall short of your personal record. Then, and this is crucial, picture yourself navigating it with steady resolve. Notice how your breath feels. Observe the thoughts that arise without clinging to them. This mental rehearsal isn't about manifesting failure. It's about proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort without crumbling. Modern psychology confirms what Seneca knew. Our brains often mistake the fear of an event for the event itself. By facing the imagined version first, the actual experience loses its fangs. Try this tonight with something small, maybe imagining your morning coffee spilling before it happens. When you mentally practice calmly cleaning it up rather than cursing your luck, you're building neural pathways that make grace under pressure your default setting. The real power of negative visualization lies in its aftermath. After walking through the worst-case scenario, ask yourself 2 questions. First, what's the actual likelihood of this happening? You'll often find your fears are statistical phantoms. Second, and more importantly, what would I do next? Because resilience isn't about avoiding falls, it's about knowing you can rise. That's the Stoic secret hidden in this practice. By rehearsing adversity, you're not predicting the future, You're preparing your inner compass to point true north no matter how stormy the seas get. The Stoics practiced temperance not just with emotions, but with every morsel they ate and every coin they spent. Musonius Rufus, the philosopher who taught Epictetus, put it bluntly: we should choose food not for pleasure but for nourishment, not to please our palate but to strengthen our bodies. This wasn't about deprivation, it was about recognizing how easily consumption becomes unconscious. Imagine standing in a grocery aisle or scrolling through an online store. That moment before you reach for your wallet is where Stoic discipline comes alive. It's the space between desire and action where you ask one simple question: does this serve my purpose, or am I feeding a fleeting craving? Modern life bombards us with engineered temptations, foods packed with sugar to hijack our brain chemistry, algorithms designed to trigger just one more click purchases. The Stoics faced different distractions, but the core challenge remains: how to consume without being consumed by our appetites. Seneca observed wealthy Romans gorging themselves until they vomited, only to eat more. He didn't judge their indulgence, he pitied their lack of freedom. It's not that we have so little time, he wrote, but that we waste so much of it on what doesn't nourish us. Here's how to reclaim that freedom today. For the next 7 days, carry a small notebook, not to track calories or budgets, but impulses. Every time you feel the pull to buy or consume something unplanned, jot down 3 details: what triggered it: stress, boredom, social pressure, how your body felt: tense shoulders, racing heart, and what story you told yourself: I deserve this, or it's on sale. This isn't about denying yourself, it's about exposing the hidden patterns that turn consumption into compulsion. Apply the Stoic pause before swiping your card or adding to cart. Literally place your hands at your sides and take 5 breaths while asking, would I still want this if it cost twice as much? If no one knew I owned it, if I had to carry it with me for a week? These filters reveal whether you're buying for utility or ego. Musonius praised simple meals of bread and olives, not because luxury was evil, but because it often clouded judgment. A luxury once sampled becomes a necessity, he warned, a truth anyone who's felt upgrade fever with tech gadgets understands. The deeper shift happens when you realize mindful consumption isn't restrictive, it's revelatory. That afternoon snack you mindlessly reach for, eaten slowly without screens, it becomes a meditation on flavor and satiety, the sweater you almost bought on impulse. Passing it up creates space for the one you'll genuinely cherish. Like a Stoic removing unnecessary words from speech, you're removing unnecessary objects from your life, not to live with less, but to appreciate more. Tonight, try this experiment during dinner. Eat the first 3 bites in complete silence, noting texture, temperature, and the effort behind each ingredient. You're not just practicing temperance, you're rediscovering the vibrant awareness that automatic consumption steals from us. Because true discipline isn't measured by what you deny yourself, but by what no longer controls you. Walking was the original meditation for the Stoics, not just movement from place to place, but a moving sanctuary for the mind. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, carved out time for solitary walks along the Tiber River. No advisors, no servants, just his thoughts and the rhythm of his steps. He called these strolls his thinking paths, where he untangled complex decisions and recentered himself in stillness despite being in motion. The ancient Greeks had a word for this: peripatetic, the art of thinking while walking. Unlike modern fitness trackers counting steps for vanity, Stoic walking measured something far more valuable: clarity. Consider how differently we walk today. Earbuds piping in podcasts, thumbs scrolling feeds, minds already at the destination before the body arrives. We've turned walking into just another multitasking opportunity, missing the profound simplicity the Stoics cherished. Seneca noted this paradox. Allowing your mind to be distracted by external inputs is like trying to fill a leaky vessel. The magic of mindful walking lies in its bareness. No apps, no playlists, just you, your breath, and the world passing by at 3 miles per hour. Here's the challenge hiding in plain sight. Take one walk this week with nothing but your senses. No phone in hand, no audio in your ears. At first, it might feel uncomfortably slow, even wasteful. That's the noise addiction leaving your system. Then something shifts. You notice the way shadows dance across pavement when wind moves through trees. The warmth of sun on your neck becomes a meditation. A stray thought arises, maybe a solution to a problem that seemed unsolvable at your desk. This isn't magic, it's what happens when your mind finally has space to work without interruption. Marcus Aurelius didn't walk to burn calories, he walked to burn away mental clutter. His journals often referenced insights that came not during frantic strategizing, but in these quiet intervals of motion. Try his technique. As you walk, silently repeat a single Stoic phrase like "this too shall pass" or "obstacle as opportunity." Let each step anchor the words deeper into your awareness. The rhythm of walking creates a cadence for contemplation, turning a simple path into a philosopher's classroom. The modern world tells us to optimize every second, to turn walks into learning opportunities with audiobooks or productivity podcasts. But the Stoics would argue you're not optimizing, you're diluting. When Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do," he implied that knowing yourself requires undistracted space. A mindful walk creates that space. It's where the fragments of your day settle like snow, leaving you clearer than any 5-step productivity hack ever could. Tonight, lay out your walking shoes by the door. Tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, step outside for just 10 minutes of pure presence. Notice how the air feels different at dawn than at dusk. Pay attention to which muscles engage when you slow your pace. This isn't exercise, it's active stillness. And when the urge to reach for your phone arises, remember, you're not missing anything. You're reclaiming the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, your attention. The path ahead is empty of distractions but full of everything else. An obstacle is never just an obstacle, it's a chisel in disguise, shaping you into someone more resilient, more creative, more you. Epictetus, the Stoic who turned physical suffering into philosophical strength, gave us a brilliant metaphor. Just as a cylinder rolls downhill effortlessly because of its shape, so too does a person move smoothly through life when their mind is properly formed. Think about that for a second. The cylinder doesn't fight gravity or complain about the incline. It uses the very force that could break it to move forward. That's the essence of Stoic reframing, not resisting what happens, but redesigning how you see it. Take a modern example. Imagine you're passed over for a promotion. The first reaction might be anger or self-doubt, but the Stoic pause kicks in. What if this rejection is saving me from a role that would have drained my creativity? What skills can I sharpen while waiting for the next opportunity? Suddenly, the obstacle becomes the scaffolding for growth. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayals, plagues, and wars, yet his journal reveals a mind trained to ask, "What's here that I can use?" Not "why me," but "how now?" Let's make this practical. Grab any notebook and draw 2 columns. On the left, write your current struggle, maybe a financial setback or a strained relationship. On the right, answer 3 questions. First, what's one skill this situation is forcing me to develop? Patience, budgeting, communication. Second, how might this problem be protecting me from something worse? That missed flight could have spared you from an accident. The failed project might redirect you to your true calling. Third, and most powerful, what would my best self do with this challenge? This isn't wishful thinking, it's cognitive restructuring, wiring your brain to spot leverage points in adversity. Epictetus didn't just preach this, he lived it. Enslaved as a child, crippled by a cruel master, he transformed his suffering into a masterclass on inner freedom. His famous teaching, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters," wasn't a platitude, it was survival strategy. When life handed him a body in pain, he built a mind at peace. That's the alchemy we're practicing here, turning leaden setbacks into golden insights. Tonight, pick one irritation, a traffic jam, a delayed package, a snarky comment, and dissect it like a Stoic scientist, not to minimize the frustration, but to mine it for hidden value. Maybe the traffic jam gifted you 10 minutes of unexpected solitude. The delayed package taught you detachment from instant gratification. The snarky comment revealed where your boundaries need reinforcing. The worksheet isn't about solving the problem. It's about solving you, retraining your perception until obstacles feel less like roadblocks and more like rough terrain, strengthening your emotional core. The cylinder rolls because it's shaped to work with gravity, not against it. Your mind works the same way. Every time you reframe a setback as a setup, you're not just coping, you're engineering a self that thrives on friction. So the next time life tilts downhill, remember, you're not falling, you're rolling, gaining momentum from what others would call resistance. That's the Stoic edge, turning life's steepest drops into your most powerful propulsion. Social media fasting sounds extreme until you consider what the Stoics were willing to give up: entire days without speaking, nights sleeping on hard floors, even their personal freedom in some cases. Seneca saw the danger of crowd mentality centuries before algorithms existed. "The crowd is untruth," he wrote. "No one keeps the same opinion for even an hour because they're swayed by whatever voice shouts loudest." That's exactly what happens when we endlessly scroll. We surrender our attention to whoever provokes the strongest reaction, letting outrage or envy dictate our mental state. A 24-hour weekly detox isn't about deprivation. It's about reclaiming sovereignty over your most precious resource, your focus. Think about the last time you went a full day without checking social platforms. For most of us, phantom limb syndrome kicks in, the habitual reach for your phone, the itch to check notifications that aren't there. That discomfort is the training ground. Like a Stoic enduring cold to appreciate warmth, you're creating contrast to recognize how deeply these platforms shape your thoughts. The first hours might feel empty, even boring. But by hour 18, something shifts. Mental clutter settles. Ideas that were drowned out by the noise of timelines resurface. You start noticing real-world details, the way sunlight moves across your walls, the rhythm of your own breathing. This isn't just absence, it's presence returning. Try this experiment starting Friday night. Delete social apps from your phone. Don't worry, they'll still be there Sunday. Keep a notebook handy when the urge to scroll arises. Instead of tapping icons, jot down 3 things you're curious about, not what others are doing, but what you want to explore. Maybe it's a recipe you've postponed trying or a book chapter you've meant to reread. The magic happens in that space between impulse and action. The moment you realize you're not missing updates, you're rediscovering agency. Seneca warned his students about the disease of constant input. He wasn't against learning. He opposed mental indigestion, consuming more than you can digest. A weekly fast acts like a cognitive reset button. Without the drip feed of others' highlight reels, your own priorities come into sharper focus. You'll notice how often you previously interrupted deep work to check likes, how frequently comparison diluted your contentment. This weekend, treat your fast like a Stoic laboratory. When boredom arises, don't flee it, interrogate it. What does it feel like in your body? What thoughts emerge when you're not numbing them with infinite scroll? That's the hidden gift of these 24 hours. They don't just detox your attention, they reveal who you are when no one's performing for applause. And when you finally reinstall those apps, you'll do so not as a prisoner of the feed, but as someone who chooses, with full awareness, when to engage and when to walk away. Because discipline isn't about rejection, it's about remembering what you'd forgotten was yours all along. Imagine carrying a pocket-sized mentor wherever you go, someone who distills 2,000 years of wisdom into sentences so crisp they cut through modern noise. That's what happens when you make Stoic reading a daily ritual. Not marathon study sessions, but bite-sized passages. 5 minutes with Marcus Aurelius at breakfast, a paragraph from Seneca with your afternoon coffee. These ancient texts weren't meant to be swallowed whole. They're designed to be absorbed drop by drop, like water seeping into parched soil. Epictetus compared philosophy to a doctor's prescription. If you want to be cured, you must follow the treatment. Just as you wouldn't take a month's worth of medicine in one dose, Stoic wisdom works best in consistent, measured increments. Start with Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, not a book polished for publication, but the private journal of an emperor at war. His words feel startlingly intimate, like overhearing a conversation between a man and his better self. When he writes, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." It's not rhetoric, it's a wake-up call scribbled by candlelight between battles. Or try Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, where complex ideas unfold like advice from a wise uncle. His letter on time management could replace every productivity app on your phone. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. The magic lies in the ritual. Designate a specific time and place, maybe a chair by the window with your morning tea, or the quiet minutes before bed. Keep your chosen book on your nightstand instead of your phone. The physical act matters. Turning pages creates a tactile barrier between philosophy and distraction. Highlight sentences that resonate, but don't just mark them. Transcribe one into a notebook with your own reflection beneath. When Seneca describes anger as brief insanity, jot down where you felt that insanity rise last week. This turns reading from passive consumption to active dialogue. Consider the compounding effect. 5 minutes daily means 35 hours of Stoic immersion a year, equivalent to a university course. But unlike lectures, these are moments woven into your life's fabric. A traffic jam becomes richer when you recall Marcus Aurelius' advice on patience. A work conflict softens when you apply Epictetus' distinction between what's yours to control and what isn't. Over time, the words stop being quotes on a page and start becoming your inner voice's cadence. Tonight, try this experiment. Read just one paragraph from Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. Then close the book and sit with one question. What's one thing I'm treating as urgent that actually doesn't deserve today's energy? Don't force an answer, let it simmer. Tomorrow, watch how that tiny seed of thought influences your choices. That's the alchemy of Stoic reading. It doesn't add more to your day. It helps you subtract what never belonged there in the first place. Your bookshelf holds mentors who never clock out, ready to whisper timeless clarity whenever you're willing to listen. The modern world bombards us with decisions: swipe to buy, click to subscribe, react to comment, all demanding instant responses. But the Stoics built a counterintuitive buffer between impulse and action, a deliberate delay. Epictetus observed that most poor choices stem not from lack of intelligence, but from lack of pause. No thing great is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Enter the 24-hour rule. For any non-urgent decision, impose a mandatory waiting period. Not as procrastination, but as fermentation, allowing your initial reaction to settle so wisdom can rise to the surface. Consider how differently we approach purchases with versus without this buffer. That limited edition watch flashing across your screen triggers instant desire, heart rate spikes, fingers hover over checkout. But when you bookmark it instead and revisit tomorrow, something revealing happens. The urgency evaporates, you notice flaws in the design, you recall similar items gathering dust in your closet. What felt like necessity reveals itself as passing fascination. Seneca practiced this with his students, making them wait 3 days before acquiring luxury items. More often than not, they returned laughing at their own temporary insanity. Apply this beyond shopping. A heated email draft saved overnight often softens into measured words by morning. A career change contemplated for 24 hours separates genuine calling from escapism. Even seemingly trivial delays, waiting a day to respond to an invitation or post a social media train the muscle of restraint. Marcus Aurelius called this the discipline of assent, the practice of withholding judgment until emotions cool. He wrote his private maxims not in the heat of battle, but in the quiet hours when perspective returned. Here's how to make it tangible today. Pick one daily decision you typically make on autopilot: upgrading a streaming subscription, agreeing to an unnecessary meeting, even choosing dessert after dinner. Insert a 24-hour pause. Use the interval to ask 3 Stoic questions. First, what's the worst outcome if I don't do this at all? Second, which choice aligns with the person I'm becoming? Third, what would future me thank me for waiting? Carry a small notebook to track these delayed decisions. Over time, you'll spot patterns. Perhaps your best choices emerge after lunch, or social commitments feel heavier when reviewed without peer pressure. The magic lies in what happens neurologically during that delay. The amygdala's primal want fades, allowing the prefrontal cortex, your brain's wise elder, to weigh in. Like sediment settling in a shaken snow globe, clarity emerges. Epictetus, who endured slavery without losing his inner freedom, understood this deeply. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Your 24-hour rule isn't about denying yourself. It's about distinguishing fleeting wants from lasting values. Tonight, try an experiment. Before bed, write down one decision you'll postpone until tomorrow. Maybe downloading that new app promising productivity miracles, or confronting a coworker over a minor slight. Then observe what changes by sunrise. Often, you'll find the decision made itself. Other times, you'll act with precision rather than impulse. That's the hidden gift of Stoic patience. It doesn't just improve your choices, it quietly upgrades who you are when making them. Because every delay is really an invitation to respond from your depths rather than your surface. Compassionate detachment might sound like a contradiction. How can you care deeply without getting tangled in others' emotions? The Stoics called this reserved assent, the art of engaging with people fully while keeping your inner peace intact. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with scheming politicians and demanding citizens daily, wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't tell himself to fix them, resent them, or absorb their energy. He simply acknowledged their humanity, flaws and all, without letting it derail his own equilibrium. Think about the last time someone's bad mood infected your entire day. Maybe a coworker snapped at you, and you carried that irritation home, or a friend's crisis became your emotional burden. Stoic compassion asks, what if you could be fully present for others without letting their storms become your weather? Imagine a nurse treating an injured patient. She doesn't scream when they scream or bleed when they bleed. Her calm isn't indifference, it's what makes her care effective. That's the balance we're after, holding space for others without collapsing into their chaos. Here's how to practice this today. Next time someone vents their frustrations, try this 3-step Stoic ritual. First, listen deeply, not just to their words, but to the pain beneath them. Second, silently remind yourself, this is their journey, not mine. Not to dismiss them, but to anchor yourself. Third, ask, what's one constructive action I can offer? Maybe it's practical advice or simply saying, that sounds really hard. By focusing on what you can actually do rather than absorbing what you can't fix, you replace emotional sponging with empowered support. Marcus Aurelius modeled this with his own family. Despite his son Commodus' reckless behavior, which history would later condemn, the emperor journaled about accepting his son's nature without illusion, not to enable his flaws, but to avoid the exhaustion of futile resistance. That's the nuance often missed. Detachment isn't cold distance. It's the clarity to love someone without needing them to change for your peace. Try a week-long experiment. Each morning, pick one relationship where you tend to over-identify, maybe a perpetually dramatic friend or a critical parent. Before interacting, whisper epictetus mantra. I cannot control others, but I can control how I dance with their energy. Then notice what shifts. Do you still listen? Absolutely. Do you still care more than ever? But instead of feeling drained after conversations, you might find something surprising. A quiet resilience that lets you show up again tomorrow without resentment. The paradox, this kind of boundaries don't push people away. They create the space for healthier connections. Like a lighthouse standing firm in a storm, your steady presence becomes a beacon others can rely on, not because you're swept up in their waves, but because you've learned how to shine without burning out. That's the gift of Stoic compassion. The ability to love others without needing their approval, their improvement, or their mood to validate your own worth. And in a world that often confuses entanglement with intimacy, that might be the most radical form of love there is. Your body isn't just a vessel, it's the first tool philosophy ever gave you. The Stoics saw physical discipline not as vanity, but as fundamental training for a resilient mind. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who championed manual labor for philosophers, put it bluntly, how could a person's soul remain strong if their body is weak and crumbling? This wasn't about six-pack abs or marathon times. It was about cultivating a body capable of enduring life's hardships without complaint. Think of the ancient Spartans who trained in harsh conditions not because they loved suffering, but because they knew comfort bred fragility. When your knees ache from squatting or your hands tremble holding a plank, you're not just building muscle, you're rehearsing for life's unexpected burdens. Consider how effortlessly physical strain translates to mental fortitude. That moment when your legs burn during a hike, but you keep climbing anyway, mirrors the perseverance needed to push through a creative block or a difficult conversation. Marcus Aurelius, who practiced wrestling despite his imperial status, wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because it requires you to stay prepared and steady against both unexpected attacks and sudden shifts." Modern science confirms this link. Regular exercise doesn't just release endorphins, it literally rewires your brain for greater stress tolerance. Every drop of sweat is an investment in emotional resilience. Start with something deceptively simple, 10 minutes of intentional movement every morning. Not high-intensity intervals or punishing routines, but mindful motion, stretching like a cat awakening from sleep, pacing your hallway with perfect posture, even scrubbing a stubborn pot with deliberate force. The key lies in presence. Feel each muscle engage. Notice your breath syncing with motion. Musonius taught his students to chop wood and dig gardens not just for utility, but to anchor their minds in the physical present. When your body is fully occupied, distractions lose their grip. Tonight, try this Stoic bedtime ritual. Stand barefoot on cold tile for 30 seconds before brushing your teeth. Don't rush. Observe how the chill shoots up your spine, how your toes instinctively curl, then how warmth floods back when you step away. That tiny discomfort, voluntarily embraced, is Musonius' philosophy in action. Your body isn't something to coddle or conquer. It's the whetstone against which you sharpen your will. Tomorrow, carry that awareness into your first movements. Let the act of tying your shoelaces become a meditation on dexterity. The climb up your office stairs a study in gravity and grace. The magic happens when physical discipline stops being a task and starts being a dialogue. Every twinge in your shoulders after carrying groceries whispers about your posture. Every afternoon slump begs the question, did you fuel your body or just feed your cravings? These aren't criticisms, they're conversations. Like a Stoic scribe noting the day's lessons in wax tablets, your body keeps its own records. The question is, are you listening? Because when you move with intention, you're not just exercising muscles, you're practicing the art of showing up fully, in every sense, for whatever life brings next. Laughter was the Stoic's secret weapon against life's absurdities, not the hollow chuckle of avoidance, but the deep, freeing mirth that comes when you recognize how small most troubles really are. Seneca, who faced exile, chronic illness, and Nero's tyranny, wrote about the philosopher Democritus, known as the Laughing Sage, who met every human folly with amusement rather than outrage. While others saw disasters, Democritus saw cosmic comedy, people chasing wealth they'd never enjoy, fretting over insults from strangers they'd forget by noon. Seneca adopted this stance, joking about his own misfortunes. If you want to feel rich, just count all the things money can't buy. That's the heart of Stoic laughter, not mocking pain, but shrinking it to its true size through perspective. Think about the last time something went hilariously wrong. Maybe you spilled coffee on your shirt before a big meeting, or tripped in public with no one around to witness it except your own dignity. The Stoics would urge you to lean into that moment, not just to shrug it off, but to actively find the humor in it. When Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, lost his entire fortune in a shipwreck, he reportedly quipped, "Fortune commands me to be a philosopher with less baggage." That's not just resilience, it's alchemy, turning leaden misfortune into golden wit. Here's how to practice this today. Pick one minor annoyance, a delayed train, a burnt toast, a printer jam, and reframe it as if it were happening to a sitcom character. Imagine laugh tracks swelling as you dramatically sigh at the traffic light turning red again. The key isn't to trivialize genuine hardships, but to expose how many of our daily catastrophes are really just inconveniences wearing tragedy's costume. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that humor disarms suffering. If someone tried to carry your burdens for a day, they'd drop them by noon. Tonight, try this exercise. Recall a past embarrassment that once felt mortifying, maybe forgetting someone's name mid-conversation or walking into a glass door. Write it down as if it were a comedy sketch, exaggerating the details until you catch yourself smiling. That's the Democritean shift. When you stop taking life's hiccups personally, you start seeing them as part of a grand, absurd play where you're both actor and audience. The Stoics weren't naive. They knew some wounds cut deep, but even in darkness, laughter can be a flint-sparking momentary light. Seneca, dying by Nero's order, reportedly reassured his grieving friends with dry wit to the end. That's the ultimate lesson. Humor doesn't deny pain, it defangs it. So the next time life hands you a mess, channel Democritus, grin, shake your head. And remember, this'll make a great story later. Time slips through our fingers like grains of sand, not because it moves faster than it used to, but because we've forgotten how to hold it. Seneca saw this 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it, not if you have more of it, but if you use it well." That's the heart of Stoic time stewardship, treating each hour not as something to kill, but as something to honor. Modern life tricks us into believing busyness equals productivity, that a packed calendar means a meaningful life. But the Stoics measured time differently, not by how much you filled, but by how deeply you engaged with what mattered. Imagine your week as an empty jar. Most of us fill it first with pebbles, meetings, errands, notifications until there's no room left for the big rocks, creative projects, quiet reflection, moments with loved ones. Time blocking flips this. It's the practice of placing those rocks in first, deliberately, then letting the pebbles settle around them. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for free time to journal or reflect. He carved it into his dawn hours before the empire's demands could intrude. His discipline wasn't about rigidity, it was about protecting space for what nourished his soul. Start with a ruthless audit. For 1 week, track every hour like a Stoic accountant. Use a simple notebook or app to log how you actually spend your time, not how you wish you spent it. You'll likely spot patterns. Maybe 2 hours daily vanish into social media vortexes, or evenings meant for rest get hijacked by work emails. The goal isn't guilt, it's clarity. Seneca warned, people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they're most wasteful of the one thing in which it's right to be stingy. Now redesign your calendar like a Stoic architect. Block 3 non-negotiable priorities first, whether it's writing, exercise, or uninterrupted family dinners. Treat these blocks as sacred appointments with your future self. Then, and only then, allocate what remains to obligations. Epictetus advised his students to let your impulses to act be blocked by reason. Apply that to your schedule. When a new request arises, pause and ask, does this deserve a piece of my life? If not, the answer is simple. I don't have the bandwidth. No excuses needed. The magic lies in the margins. Leave blank spaces between blocks, not for scrolling, but for breathing. The Stoics called these interstices, the gaps where insight grows. A 15-minute walk after lunch becomes a moving meditation. The quiet minutes before bed transform into gratitude reflections. Over time, you'll notice something revolutionary. When you stop racing against time, it starts working with you. Deadlines feel less oppressive because you've given them room to breathe. Creative ideas flow easier because your mind isn't frazzled from constant context switching. Tonight, try this experiment. Before bed, sketch tomorrow's ideal day in 4 blocks: morning, midday, afternoon, evening. Assign one Stoic intention to each: focus, connection, renewal, reflection. Then watch how differently the hours unfold when you're not just reacting to the world's demands, but consciously directing your most finite resource. Because time isn't just passing, you're trading it for something. The only question is, what are you buying? Silence transforms a meal from mere consumption to communion with the present moment. The Stoics practiced this radical simplicity. Epictetus, who survived on bread and water as a slave, wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Imagine eating an apple without scrolling through your phone, without the TV murmuring in the background, without even the distraction of your own thoughts analyzing the day. Just the crisp snap of skin between your teeth, the slow release of tart juice, the granular texture dissolving on your tongue. That's sensory mindfulness in its purest form, a meditation where the plate becomes your altar and every bite a prayer of presence. Modern life has turned meals into multitasking marathons, shoveling food while answering emails, breakfasts devoured in the car, dinners shared with screens rather than faces. The Stoics would call this a double theft. You lose both the nourishment of the food and the nourishment of the moment. Seneca observed wealthy Romans feasting while entertainers danced and poets recited. Their palates so bombarded with stimuli they barely tasted the delicacies before them. A hungry stomach, he noted, finds even barley bread sweet. When we eat without awareness, we're not just missing flavors, we're missing the chance to reconnect with one of life's most fundamental pleasures. Try this today with just one meal, preferably breakfast or lunch when distractions feel most urgent. Set your utensils down between bites. Notice how heat travels through a spoonful of soup, how the crunch of toast echoes in your skull, how the bitterness of greens makes your jaw tense slightly. Epictetus taught that joy lies in the space between craving and satisfaction, that stretch where anticipation meets fulfillment. By eating silently, you're stretching that moment wide enough to step inside. The ritual begins before the first bite. Arrange your food simply, no artistic plating required, just intentional placement. As you sit, take 3 breaths to transition from doing to being. If thoughts about unfinished tasks arise, picture them as leaves floating down a stream while you remain on the bank. This isn't about perfection. It's about noticing when you drift and gently guiding yourself back. Even one fully present mouthful is a victory. You'll discover unexpected truths in silence. Maybe your morning oatmeal tastes subtly different each day depending on the ripeness of the banana you sliced into it. Perhaps you realize you've been over-salting your eggs because you've never truly tasted them without the interference of conversation. These aren't just culinary insights, they're metaphors for how much we miss when we rush through life half-aware. Tonight, as you prepare tomorrow's lunch, consider packing something that delights your senses: a handful of almonds with their satisfying snap, a piece of dark chocolate that melts unevenly on the tongue. Then, when noon arrives, find a quiet corner and eat as if it were your first meal after a long fast. Not in solemnity, but in curiosity. The Stoics didn't advocate silence to punish pleasure. They practiced it to amplify joy's signal through life's noise. Your meal might last only 10 minutes, but those minutes will stretch like warm taffy, slow, sweet, and entirely yours. Because mindfulness isn't something you add to your day. It's what remains when you subtract everything else. Your closet might be the last place you'd expect to find Stoic wisdom, but hidden among those overflowing hangers is a profound lesson in freedom. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire in the same simple robe day after day, wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's the essence of a Stoic wardrobe, not just fewer clothes, but fewer distractions from what truly matters. Every morning, when you stare at a jam-packed closet yet feel like you have nothing to wear, you're facing decision fatigue, a modern form of slavery to choices the Stoics would have considered trivial. They practiced indifference toward externals not as deprivation, but as liberation from the tyranny of more. Think about the last time you packed for a trip with just a carry-on. Remember that unexpected lightness. No agonizing over which shoes match which outfit. No wasted minutes debating accessories. That's the magic of a capsule wardrobe distilled to its essentials. The Roman Stoics wore tunics that could be cleaned in rivers and sandals that lasted years, not because they lacked resources, but because they valued mental space over material variety. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, intentionally wore plain clothing to remind himself, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Here's the challenge hidden in your closet. Open it right now and remove every item you haven't worn in 6 months. not just the ill-fitting or outdated pieces, but the maybe someday clothes that whisper false promises of future usefulness. Feel the weight of those unused garments. That's not just fabric. It's unmade decisions, unworn identities, and mental clutter masquerading as options. Epictetus, born into slavery, carried all his belongings in a small bag. While we needn't go that far, there's power in asking, if I lost this tomorrow, would I genuinely miss it? Turn this into a Stoic exercise. For every piece you keep, articulate its purpose aloud. This coat keeps me warm in winter. These shoes are comfortable for long walks. If you can't define its role beyond, I might need it, that's your cue to let go. Donate with intention, not just tossing bags into bins, but imagining the hands your clothes might next serve. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, what we cannot bear removes us from life, what remains can be borne. Your wardrobe is a microcosm of this truth. The real transformation happens when you notice what fills the space where those discarded items once hung. Not emptiness, but clarity. Outfits become uniforms of purpose rather than costumes for hypothetical scenarios. Mornings begin with focus instead of frustration, and when you inevitably face life's actual hardships, you'll have conserved willpower from all those trivial choices you no longer make. Because a Stoic wardrobe isn't about looking a certain way, it's about seeing yourself clearly, stripped of everything that isn't essential. Fear shrinks when you hold it up to the light and measure its true dimensions. That's the essence of Stoic risk assessment. Seneca perfected this in his letters to Lucilius, where he dissected anxieties with surgical precision. What's the worst that could happen, and if it did, what then? He called this pre-rehearsal of fears, not to dwell on misery, but to expose how many of our terrors crumble under rational scrutiny. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. When we articulate our fears in concrete terms, they lose the nebulous power that makes them feel insurmountable. Take career change paralysis. The vague dread of "what if I fail" keeps countless people stuck in unfulfilling jobs. But when you apply Seneca's fixed cost thinking, the monster under the bed becomes manageable. First, define failure specifically. Running out of savings in 6 months, having to take a step back in title, then assess, could you survive that? Would temporary freelance work bridge the gap? Might the skills gained in trying offset the setback? Suddenly, the worst-case scenario transforms from an abyss into a contingency plan. Marcus Aurelius used this same method when leading troops into battle. He didn't pretend defeat was impossible, but he calculated exactly what surrender would cost and how he'd rebuild. Here's how to practice this today. Pick one nagging fear, maybe launching a side hustle or confronting a difficult family member. Grab paper and divide it into 3 columns. First, detail the worst plausible outcome, not catastrophes, realistic setbacks. Second, list every resource you'd still have if that happened. Health, key relationships, transferable skills. Third, outline one step you'd take to recover. This isn't pessimism, it's strategic immunity against life's unpredictability. Like a fire drill preparing you to act calmly in chaos, this exercise trains your mind to respond to adversity with clarity rather than panic. Seneca's genius lay in recognizing that most fears are overpriced tickets to shows we'll never attend. In one letter, he imagined losing his wealth, his status, even his friends, only to realize he'd still have his philosophy, his ability to adapt, his capacity to find joy in simple things. That's the liberating truth hidden in fixed cost thinking. When you itemize the actual price tag of failure, you often discover you've been paying interest on a debt you'll never owe. Tonight, try this with something small: the anxiety before a dentist visit or sending a vulnerable text. Write down the worst plausible outcome, then beneath it, the first thing you do to move forward. Notice how the space between those two lines holds not devastation, but agency. That's the Stoic shift. Fear doesn't disappear, but it stops wearing the costume of doom. It becomes just another variable in the equation of living well, one you've already calculated how to solve. The rustle of leaves, the steady rhythm of waves, the unbroken arc of the sky, these aren't just scenic backdrops, but portals to what the Stoics called the cosmic perspective. Marcus Aurelius often retreated to the countryside to realign with this truth, writing in his Meditations, "Nature takes substance and makes it into another substance, and then another, so that the universe is always young." He wasn't just admiring landscapes, he was observing the grand choreography of change and continuity, where every falling leaf and shifting season mirrored life's impermanence and resilience. That's the heart of Stoic nature immersion, not a casual walk in the park, but a deliberate communion with the world's timeless rhythms to dissolve our self-made dramas. Modern life tethers us to screens that flicker with manufactured urgency, breaking news alerts, social media crises, inbox avalanches. Yet step outside, and the natural world operates on an older, wiser clock. A spider rebuilds its torn web without complaint. A river carves stone without force. These aren't just poetic observations, they're masterclasses in Stoic equanimity. When Epictetus urged his students to align your will with nature, he wasn't advocating wilderness survival skills. He was pointing to the quiet intelligence of ecosystems that adapt without resistance, endure without resentment, and transform without regret. Your local park holds more philosophy than a library if you know how to read it. Here's how to translate this into practice. Once a week, gift yourself 90 minutes of unplugged immersion, no cameras, no podcasts, no step-counting apps. Wander with no destination, tuning your senses to nature's subtleties. Notice how moss grows thicker on the north side of trees, how birds fall silent moments before rain arrives. These aren't trivia facts, they're reminders that attunement beats analysis. The Stoics didn't study nature to conquer it, they observed to learn its patience. When Seneca described old-growth forests as cathedrals, he was honoring their capacity to shrink human worries to their proper size. Try this grounding exercise next time you're outdoors. Find a natural object, a pine cone, a stone, even a puddle, and study it as if you'd never seen anything like it before. Trace its textures, ponder its origins, imagine its future. That pebble in your palm, it may outlast civilizations. This simple act triggers what psychologists call awe broadening, the sensation of your petty concerns dissolving into something vast and timeless. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, whispering to himself, "All things are interwoven and the bond is sacred." The deeper magic lies in nature's cycles. A rotting log isn't just decay, it's a nursery for new life. A setting sun isn't an ending, it's a promise of return. When you internalize these patterns, setbacks lose their sting. Your failed project becomes compost for the next endeavor. A strained relationship enters its winter, trusting spring will reshape it. This isn't naive optimism, it's the hard-won realism of someone who's watched storms pass and seedlings push through cracks in concrete. Tonight, step outside and look up. Those stars have witnessed empires rise and crumble, yet they shine no brighter or dimmer for human dramas. Their constancy is your invitation to stop measuring life in headlines and heartbeats and start tracing your place in the grand, spinning mosaic. Because nature doesn't just soothe, it teaches the art of persisting without straining, changing without breaking, and belonging without owning. And that might be the most Stoic skill of all. Nightfall was sacred to the Stoics, not just for rest, but for reconciliation with the day's events. Epictetus, who slept on a simple mat despite his fame as a philosopher, taught his students to approach sleep as training for death. When you go to sleep, say to yourself that you're returning what was on loan, your body to nature, your consciousness to the universal mind. This wasn't morbid, it was a reminder to release the day's tensions completely, like unclenching a fist submerged in water. Modern sleep science confirms what the Stoics intuited. Quality rest begins long before your head touches the pillow. It's cultivated in those final waking hours when you transition from doing to being, from grasping to letting go. Consider the last time you scrolled through news or emails right before bed. Your racing thoughts likely mirrored the flickering screen, fragmented, reactive, unsettled. The Stoics would have recognized this as a violation of nature's rhythms. Seneca described nighttime as a sanctuary where the mind should return to itself as a traveler returns home. He wrote letters by lamplight, not the harsh glow of digital devices, allowing his thoughts to settle like sediment in wine. The difference between ancient oil lamps and modern blue light isn't just technological, it's neurological. Your brain interprets after dark screen exposure as false dawn, suppressing melatonin and fracturing the very rest you crave. Here's how to reclaim your nights the Stoic way. Begin with a twilight buffer 90 minutes before bed. Dim the lights and silence notifications. This isn't deprivation. It's creating space for what Epictetus called the inner citadel, that quiet place within untouched by external chaos. Brew a cup of chamomile or warm milk, not for their mild sedative effects, but for the ritual itself. As steam rises, ask yourself 3 questions adapted from Marcus Aurelius' journal. What's one thing I learned today? Where did I act with integrity? What's one thought I release before sleep? Keep responses brief. This isn't a performance review, but a gentle untangling of the day's threads. Physical preparation matters as much as mental. The Stoics practiced what they called the day's epilogue, stretching tight muscles, washing the face and feet with cool water, even massaging oil into sore hands if they'd labored. These weren't indulgences, they were acts of respect for the body that carried them through the day. Try this tonight. Stand barefoot on a cold floor for 30 seconds before brushing your teeth. The shock grounds you in your body, pulling awareness from swirling thoughts to simple sensation. Then, as you lie down, consciously relax each limb like a marionette, releasing its strings, toes first, then ankles, calves, thighs, all the way up to your forehead. The final step is the most counterintuitive: surrender control. Ancient Stoics slept without locks on their doors, training themselves to rest despite vulnerability. While security measures today are wise, the principle remains: sleep requires trust in your preparation, in the universe's unfolding, in your ability to meet whatever dawn brings. Epictetus advised picturing sleep as returning to the source. As a leaf falls from a tree, so too you fall asleep, not gone, but part of something greater. When insomnia strikes, don't fight it. Rise, sit by a window, and watch the stars until drowsiness returns like a tide you can't command, but can learn to flow with. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember, you're not just recharging for tomorrow. You're practicing the art of release, of faith, of becoming like the ancient olive trees the Stoics admired, deeply rooted by day, peacefully dormant by night, and always in conversation with the earth that holds you. Words are currency, spend them wisely, or go bankrupt in conversations that leave you drained. The Stoics practiced something radical called reserved judgment, a discipline of withholding opinions until they'd passed 3 tests. Is it true? Is it necessary? Does it improve the silence? Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, put it bluntly: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we might listen more and speak less. This wasn't about suppressing thoughts, but about elevating speech from chatter to craftsmanship. Imagine a world where every sentence you uttered carried weight because you'd stopped trading in mental small change. Modern life bombards us with opportunities to opine, social media comment sections, group chats buzzing with hot takes, water cooler debates about everything from sports to politics. But here's the paradox: the more we share unsolicited views, the less our words matter. Seneca observed this in Roman forums where politicians competed to shout loudest. The more you say, the less people remember. Opinion fasting cuts through this noise. It's not about having no stance, it's about choosing when your stance deserves airtime. Like a sculptor who removes marble to reveal art, you subtract unnecessary speech to reveal understanding. Try this experiment tomorrow. For 24 hours, engage in conversations without offering a single unsolicited opinion. At the coffee shop when someone complains about the weather. Nod in a meeting where colleagues argue over minor details. Observe. You'll notice something profound. Most opinions are reflexes, not responses. They're the mental equivalent of reaching for your phone when bored. Reserved judgment trains you to spot the difference between speaking to contribute and speaking to fill space. The magic happens in the gaps you create. Without rushing to voice agreement or dissent, you start hearing nuances you'd previously drowned out with your own voice. That coworker's rant about inefficiency might reveal unmet needs beneath the frustration. A friend's casual remark about their weekend could hint at loneliness masked by humor. Epictetus taught that listening is the gateway to empathy. You can't learn what you think you already know. Tonight, prepare for your opinion fast like a Stoic preparing for a spiritual exercise. Write down 3 topics that typically trigger your unsolicited takes, maybe politics, parenting styles, or workplace policies. Next to each, note what you usually gain by weighing in validation, control, and what it costs you: energy, tension. Then, script 3 neutral responses for tomorrow. That's an interesting perspective, or I'd need to think more about that. These aren't dodges, they're linguistic airbags, giving your impulses time to settle. When you break the fast the following day, something unexpected happens. Your words return sharper, more intentional. You might even find certain opinions no longer feel worth voicing, not out of apathy, but because silence revealed they were never truly yours to begin with. That's the hidden gift of reserved judgment. It doesn't just change how you speak, it changes what you genuinely believe. And in a world drowning in hot takes, that's the rarest currency of all. Money isn't just numbers on a screen, it's a mirror reflecting what we truly value. The Stoics saw wealth not as evil, but as a test of character. Seneca, who navigated immense riches as Nero's advisor, warned, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." That's the heart of Stoic budgeting, not penny-pinching deprivation, but cultivating indifference toward anything that doesn't serve your growth or peace. Imagine your bank statement as a philosophical ledger. Every charge reveals whether you're investing in freedom or chaining yourself to empty status symbols. The ancient Stoics practiced something radical for their time. They distinguished between wealth and riches. Wealth meant self-sufficiency, the ability to thrive with less. Riches were external trappings that often bred more anxiety than joy. When Musonius Rufus taught that the fruit of frugality is abundance, he wasn't praising poverty, he was highlighting how unnecessary spending creates artificial scarcity. That monthly subscription you forgot about, the impulse buys stacking up in your closet, these aren't just financial leaks, they're distractions from the contentment that comes when your outflows align with your principles. Here's how to audit your spending like a Stoic. For 1 week, track every expense, not just the amount, but the emotional trigger behind it. Did that takeout order stem from hunger or exhaustion? Was that new gadget purchased for utility or to soothe a bad day? Seneca mocked Romans who bought exotic meats only to vomit them up at feasts. They eat to throw up and throw up to eat. Modern equivalents surround us: the gym membership we never use, the premium cable package for shows we stream on our phones. The goal isn't guilt, but awareness of where money becomes a band-aid for unmet needs. Tonight, try this exercise. Open your banking app and scan last month's transactions. Circle one expense that conflicts with your stated values. Maybe it's daily coffee runs when you own a French press, or late-night online shopping sprees after stressful workdays. Then ask Seneca's razor-sharp question: does this purchase expand my freedom or my obligations? That $5 latte isn't the enemy, but the mindless habit behind it might be. The Stoics didn't advocate living like hermits. They urged conscious consumption where each dollar spent is a vote for the life you want to lead. The deeper shift happens when you realize financial discipline isn't restriction, it's rebellion. Every dollar not spent on fleeting pleasures is a dollar invested in lasting sovereignty. Epictetus, born into slavery, treasured his simple clay lamp because it couldn't be stolen without him noticing. Your version might be an emergency fund that lets you walk away from toxic jobs, or savings that buy you months to pursue meaningful work. That's Stoic budgeting at its core, using money as a tool to purchase the only luxury that truly matters: your unshakable peace of mind. Fear shrinks when you confront it in daylight, not with reckless abandon, but with the precision of a Stoic surgeon. Epictetus, who endured slavery and physical disability, framed courage not as the absence of fear, but as the willingness to act despite its whispers. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid in the practice of bravery. His insight reveals a paradox. True courage grows in the soil of small, deliberate discomforts, not grand, heroic gestures. The soldier doesn't learn to face battle by avoiding loud noises. They train with target practice until gunfire becomes familiar rather than terrifying. Start where the stakes feel manageable but meaningful. That might mean striking up a conversation with a stranger at the grocery store rather than waiting for a life or death moment to test your resolve. Public speaking, ranked higher than death in some fear surveys, offers fertile ground. Volunteer to give a toast at a friend's dinner party before tackling a corporate presentation. Notice how your palms sweat less with each attempt, how your breath steadies faster after stumbling over words. These aren't just skill improvements, they're neural rewiring in action. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, learns through repetition that no catastrophe follows your stutter or pause. Tonight, grab a notebook and draw 3 columns. In the first, list fears that make your pulse quicken but won't upend your life if things go poorly: asking a question in a meeting, returning an overcooked meal at a restaurant, dancing when others might watch. The second column is for preparation. Research public speaking techniques if words fail you, rehearse polite phrasing for the waiter, practice dance steps alone first. The third rewards not for success but for showing up. A favorite treat after the meeting, a quiet walk after the restaurant, laughing at your own awkwardness post-dance. Epictetus taught that courage and joy are allies. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do, and laugh at the gap between. The magic lies in progression. Once returning that salad feels trivial, challenge yourself to voice an unpopular opinion in a safe setting. When that becomes manageable, perhaps it's time for karaoke night. Each step stretches your tolerance for discomfort like a muscle, not to the point of injury, but enough to spark growth. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor, writing, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path." Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve your condition. Notice what happens when you reframe fear as a training partner rather than an enemy. That flutter in your chest before raising your hand isn't weakness, it's your body priming for growth, like a runner's pulse at the starting line. The Stoics called this prosoj, the art of mindful attention to your reactions. By observing fear without obeying it, you're not just conquering external challenges, you're mastering the inner terrain where all true courage begins. So tonight, as you jot down those fears, ask yourself, which one, if faced, would make the others seem smaller? Not the scariest item, but the one where victory would ripple outward. Because courage isn't a single grand act, it's the accumulation of mornings when you choose to stretch rather than shrink. And with each small confrontation, you're not just overcoming fear, you're uncovering the braver self that was there all along. Legacy isn't just what you leave behind, it's who you become along the way. The Stoics understood this better than anyone, which is why they didn't just journal about their days, they wrote to their future selves with surgical precision. Marcus Aurelius' meditations weren't meant for publication, they were private letters to his soul, reminders of the man he aspired to be. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, that's the power of legacy writing. It's not about crafting your epitaph, but sculpting your character in real time. Imagine holding a mirror to your potential, not to admire your reflection, but to spot the cracks where growth could seep in. Your Stoic self-portrait begins with a single question. What traits would make you unstoppable if they were unshakable? Not skills or achievements, but qualities: resilience in failure, grace under pressure, joy in simplicity. Picture your ideal self 5 years from now, not by job title or net worth, but by how they navigate life's storms. Does he flinch at criticism or dissect it for truth? Does she cling to comfort or find strength in voluntary hardship? The gap between that future self and today isn't a flaw, it's your curriculum. Seneca called this living toward virtue, designing each day as if chiseling marble, removing what doesn't resemble the statue within. Here's how to make it tangible tonight. Grab any notebook, even scrap paper, and title it Letters to the Self I'm Becoming. In your first entry, describe a challenge you're currently facing, but write about it as if you've already overcome it. Not with vague positivity like "I crushed it," but with Stoic specificity. I noticed my pulse racing when the project failed, but I paused to ask, what's here to learn? By sunset, I'd drafted 3 solutions. This isn't fantasy, it's cognitive rehearsal. Neuroscience shows that vividly imagining an action activates the same neural pathways as performing it. You're not just hoping to be patient, you're wiring patience into your identity. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his darkest hours. Amid political betrayals and plague outbreaks, he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice what he didn't say. No grand proclamations about conquering empires or leaving monuments. Just a man reminding himself to meet each moment with presence and principle. That's your blueprint. Now go deeper. Write a letter from your future self, the one who's weathered storms you can't yet imagine, back to who you are today. What would they praise about your current struggles? What gentle corrections might they offer? Epictetus taught that we're all actors in a play the universe is writing, but we get to choose how we play our parts. Your legacy journal is where you rehearse your lines before stepping onto life's stage. Close tonight's entry with one small vow, not a sweeping life overhaul, but a micro-commitment aligned with your portrait. Maybe it's tomorrow, I'll pause for 3 breaths before reacting to criticism. Or I'll greet dawn with gratitude before reaching for my phone. These are the brushstrokes of your masterpiece. Because the Stoics knew a secret, you don't build a legacy. You live it, one deliberate word, one chosen thought, one quiet act of courage at a time. And years from now, when you reread these pages, you won't just see who you wanted to become. You'll recognize who you've always been beneath the noise, the unshakable core no storm can erode. These 30 micro-practices aren't isolated habits. They're threads weaving a new identity, one subtle stitch at a time. What makes them so powerful isn't their individual impact, but how they compound. Like water carving stone through persistence rather than force, these small, daily acts reshape who you are without the strain of willpower battles. The Stoics didn't believe in overhauling your life overnight. They trusted in the quiet alchemy of repetition, where showing up for 5 minutes of morning reflection today becomes second nature by next month, where pausing before reacting eventually feels more natural than lashing out. Discipline, in this light, isn't a whip cracking at your back. It's a compass recalibrating your inner navigation system toward true north. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully in his private writings. The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. Every cold shower you take, every unnecessary opinion you withhold, every moment of digital detox you honor, these aren't tests of endurance, they're love letters to your future self. The man who journals through discomfort today becomes the man who meets crises with clarity tomorrow. The woman who practices speech discipline this week becomes the woman who commands respect without raising her voice next year. Identity isn't fixed, it's forged in these seemingly insignificant choices that stack like bricks into an unshakable foundation. You don't need to tackle all 30 practices at once. That would miss the point entirely. Start with just 2 or 3 that resonate most, maybe the morning ritual of asking, "What's within my control today?" Paired with the evening review of lessons learned, or combine the 24-hour rule on purchases with a weekly social media fast. The key is consistency, not volume. Epictetus reminded his students that progress happens in millimeters. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. As we close, return to that core Stoic insight. Discipline isn't deprivation. It's the ultimate act of self-respect, a way of living that trades short-term gratification for lasting sovereignty over your attention, your emotions, your very essence. The path forward isn't about perfection. It's about showing up again tomorrow and the next day with the gentle determination of someone who knows that every small act is a vote for the person you're becoming. Your journey starts now. Pick those 2 or 3 practices today, not tomorrow, not when life calms down, and begin. The world needs more people who operate from calm rather than chaos, from principle rather than panic. And if you found value here, consider joining our community. We're all walking this ancient path together, one mindful step at a time. Until next time, remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. Be ready for the unexpected hold and turn it to your advantage. Now go make your life a masterpiece.